Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert, the President Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. The Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
You can't make me say it.
Well, I'll say it. We doggies. We doggies. That's right.
I think it's time to turn over a new leaf.
There's always those leaves. They don't turn themselves.
That's right.
Especially the new ones. They're so new. Can't even turn themselves.
Oh,
What are they? How are you tonight, Jackie?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. I'm a Course in Miracles student, so life is always interesting.
I agree. I missed meeting with you all last week. We had an in-person board meeting / retreat in Levita, and it was lovely. It was really lovely for everybody to get together and to just gather around our founding principles and that sort of thing. So it was a fabulous trip, but it caused me to miss this program last week, and that's just too bad.
It's important. It's important work, and you just heard me give the lesson on healing in a group dynamic. You just went back from this retreat for the council members, or
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that's the way it's done. I have to believe in our healing. I have to believe in our stuff, and I have to act on it, even when I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. You should do it anyway. But we're learning about a lot of that in Luke, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So, what are we up to, Jacquelyn? Why don't you tell these lovely people again what we do in this hour?
I know you really secretly want me to tell you because you're not sure you're on the right page. So let me tell you, Glen.
No secret. I'm making sure.
Wait, let me find it. To the best of my knowledge, we are on page 30 of Keys, the Keys to NTI. We're reading NTI, Luke chapter 13 this evening.
Yes.
And Glen is on the right page.
Yeah, I am on the right page.
I'm not sure what page that is. Or do you have your regular? I can look it up.
Oh, yes, but the camera's sitting on it.
That's all right. I'll find it. I got it right here.
Okay. Oh wait,
Maybe.
I think I might even have that noted in my notes.
Page 155, Sean says.
Yes,
And Cindy.
Yes, page 155 through
Well done,
157.
girl. Thank you. That's where we are. So what I don't recall, one of the many things I guess I don't recall, is who's going to read tonight.
I think Shauna knows.
Jacquelyn reads.
I'm good at that.
There you are.
It's called Post-its.
No, yeah. Okay, we'll call
How
it.
does that work, Sean? Yeah, very
New invention.
sophisticated. Well done. Well done.
Uh-huh.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read. Glenn will comment, I'll comment, and then we all comment. That's how this generally goes. Is that right, Glenn?
I think so. I'm always interested in what everybody says as well. It's always
Oh,
a great
absolutely.
discussion after we do it. So really encourage make decent notes and tell us what you think.
Okay, here we go. NTI, Luke chapter 13. When you look at the world, remember that you are looking through the filter of your own mind. When you find yourself reacting to the world you see, remember that you are only reacting to the thoughts in your mind. This will provide for you the opportunity to see the thoughts that you think. As you watch the world through the filter of your mind, you will think you see many things. Some will seem good, heartwarming, funny, happy, and desirable. Others will seem frightening, horrible, wrong, disgusting, and undesirable. And there will seem to be a sliding scale of good and bad in every thought that is in between. Now remember again that you are looking through the filter of your mind, which means that the concepts of good and bad must be thought of there. Surely you will see that these thoughts are yours, and you are the proud owner of the judgments you have made. Recognizing that you own your judgments is important, for if you are the owner or the believer of what you think, then you can also decide to choose again and allow yourself to think differently. At first, you may not see why you should want to change some of the judgments you have made. So I ask this of you. Remember that judgment is like a knife that looks at the Son of God and separates him. This means that as long as you hold on to your judgment as something that has value, you are blind to the beauty and value of the sight of the Son of God. And now, with that thought in your mind, can you give your willingness to lay your judgments aside, whatever they may seem to be? If you can find but a bit of willingness to see the Son of God and so not to judge, that is enough. And if each time you notice your judgments, you give your willingness in whatever measure it may seem to be, that is enough again. I bless you with my gratitude each time you give me but the smallest measure of your willingness. For each small measure is like fertilizer. It is useful to me in the healing of your heart. Your confusion comes from the binding ways of your own thinking until now. It is your thoughts that have made you suffer. And so, if you would choose freedom, you must also choose freedom from your thoughts. This is why I have come. I'm here to teach you to lay down your thoughts, to loosen yourself from your bindings, and to straighten up and walk in joy and gratitude instead. How does one come to know the peace and joy of God? I tell you that it is not through the worry and effort of your old ways. Sit down and relax with me. One comes to know the peace and joy of God by listening to me, as a small child who is eager to learn listens to a parent. And then, just as that child does, by trying everything the parent asks it to try. But if you watch a child when it is learning something new, you will notice that the learning itself does not seem to come from the child's effort. The practice is but an expression of the child's willingness to learn. The learning itself seems to come upon the child like a miracle, and suddenly the small child can do what it could not do before. This is how it is with you. Listen and practice as an expression of your willingness, but do not expect results from your listening and your practice. Expect results from the expression of your willingness. There are many distractions that come to keep your mind from me. Remember that distractions are temptations put forth by your resistance, and resist the distraction instead. I've said before that it is not important what you do, but why you do it. This is an invitation to do all things for me. If each distraction can become an opportunity to hear my voice, you are doing well on the path to healing. The door to the kingdom of heaven is not narrow. The door is open to all, and all shall enter in their time. But to pass through the door, one must pass by distractions. You do well not to be delayed long on your way. Make me your only purpose in all things. Your willingness is everything. Through your willingness, see all things anew. Yeah.
I know it's kind of wild that there's only I think 30 verses in this chapter. You know, that's a lot. That's a lot for 30 verses in my in my experience.
Yeah.
She and if you're familiar with this chapter in Luke, the first like first five verses are the famous quote is to repent or perish. That's in the first. So what happens is NTI says, when you look at the world. I'm looking at it through my beliefs, through the filter of my own mind. And this is like the repent or perish thing is like, you do the right thing or there will be consequences. Then the consequences are like suffering. You know, he goes, I'm participating in my own suffering. And she says, you know that if you were willing to even admit your own biases, and even willing to admit you want things a certain way, you have a filter of your own mind. And she doesn't even say that's even a bad thing. It's you don't acknowledge it. We don't see it. There's no conscious aware of it. I get to like green or blue or whatever I want. That's not what the problem is. Making these hierarchies are. When you look at the world, you are looking at it through your own mind. When you find yourself reacting to this world that's in your own mind through this filter of made up beliefs and things, remember that it's only the thoughts in your mind. This was huge for me to separate. I am not my thoughts. I didn't have to monitor or be so, precious about my thoughts. That when I realized that I could that my thoughts weren't me, my identification wasn't in this, I had the ability to like say, no, I don't want to choose that, or no, I don't want to feel this way. But before that, I felt like I was just my thoughts were doing me, right? Just on it. I was being ridden instead of making choices. My own insanity. Well, 6 through 8 is the parable of the barren fig tree, which is interesting because she says, recognizing that your own judgment is important for you, and you're the owner or the believer of what you think, when you can also decide to choose again, to allow yourself to think differently. You're growing the fruits you're eating. I mean, you're growing your own experiences. You know, I'm sitting out the seeds and growing the misfortune in my life. You know, unconsciously. You know, we're doing this to us. You know, so the barren fig tree is like, so if what you're doing isn't getting you where you want to go, then you need to change tactics, right? This doubling down on my own suffering, my own identity, and making, and being a control freak, that's been kind of my a go-to, is if I could just control enough things, I'd be okay, and you'd be okay, right? But it never works out. It just never works out that way. I wish it would, because I mean, that'd be something really to get good at it, controlling everything. But there isn't any. I know it's ridiculous, but there's a paradigm in my head that still operates that. I still find that's an operating motive. That's an operating filter in my head. The next one is verses 10 through 17, when Jesus heals the woman on the Sabbath, which is interesting. The lesson is, as long as you hold on to your judgment as something that you value, and I just talked about this, like valuing, having my identity in this value, this hierarchy. I'm blind to the beauty and the value of the sight of the Son of God, reality. as long as I hold on to my judgment and want my judgment more than I want reality, I can't see what is beautiful.
Mhm.
You know, and I can say that's what I want. You know, I bless you with my gratitude each time that you give me, with the voice of the inner Ramana, voice of my Holy Spirit, voice that likes me, will give me the smallest measure of your willingness. For each small measure is like fertilizer. It's useful to me in healing. It's like, it's very, very, very small. It doesn't need a whole lot. And that's what, and where do you find the mustard seed, the parable of the mustard seed in the yeast? Right here in Luke, in 18 through 21. Listen and practice as an expression of your willingness. But then she says something that is really next level. Oh. Bless you with it.
We're on pins and needles
I
here.
know. Okay. She said, don't expect results.
Mm.
That's been really difficult for me, is to do the right thing and not, do the right thing because it's mine to do, and you know, my consistency and my integrity matter, and I act on my faith so that it becomes knowledge. But, you know, not expecting a specific result has been a trial and a real absolute blessing to me. Because I remember somebody said a long time ago, this or something better, you know? I remember like you saying a couple of weeks ago, it's like, oh, this didn't work out. Yay. You know? It's like, that willingness to not me really not know what the next thing happened is the best thing. Or you know, like, the best thing happening is always the next thing happening. For me to get to that okay space where that I don't have just trust in the future or faith in the future or faith in reality. It's something I don't even question. I'm living into it. I'm living it as what we call around here the flow, and not as a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the subtle hints of working toward a destination and like working in the flow. I didn't know that that a lot of what I did was work for destinations until I could see it, you know. And because I'm a great critic, but you probably didn't know that. I have excellent opinions, you know. So the next two, verses 22 through 30. I'm sorry, this is actually verses 36. 30. There's only 36 verses in this. I misspoke earlier. Is a parable of the narrow door, and she says in the NTI, it's like, remember that distractions are temptations put forth by your resistance, and resist the distraction instead. That's really good. That's so clear. And resist the distraction instead. Don't fix it. Just resist the distraction. It's not important what you do, but why you do it. Mm-hmm. This is the invitation to do all things for me. And what's the me in this thing? Us. Reality. What am I doing anything for? As in service of the experience of what is true. That's what it is. Oh, and the last bit, I thought it was fun. The last paragraph is Jesus' sorrow at Jerusalem. Do you know that metaphor? Do you remember Jesus' sorrow at Jerusalem? It was said around my house when I grew up a lot. Woe to Jerusalem who kills all its prophets. You know, so that's the line she says, and what comes out of it is, your willingness is everything. Through your willingness, see all things new. The others, you can see right through the coin that they offer up with kills everything that comes out of Jerusalem. So it's like, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What is real cannot stand, and and the opposite is also true. I'm always my little self, my little ego, the one that wants to control everything, is always going to be attacking reality, you know, because it just doesn't want reality. It wants to feel good. It wants to be a better, more perfect object. That's how I'm beginning to see my ego right now, is to be a perfect object, you know. Uh, so I'm really liking Luke. I can see why it's the one of the four ones, because she doesn't let up here at all in this. We're walking home together. Take my hand, or like the car drives up and she goes, get in.
Right. Get in, Neo.
Yeah, get in, Neo. It's kind of how this is kind of how Luke feels right now to me.
Absolutely. Lovely. Well, thank you for your share. Thank you for your as always, Glenn, for your enthusiasm. I love your enthusiasm. It just it lights me up. And you go through that so dramatically that every time I expect you to go, and scene.
Oh, I was at the drama club from 6th grade all the way through the whole thing.
I have no question about that.
Oh, no.
So, thank you for sharing. So let's see. Let's look at the first pair. Oh, and thank you for reading all of the New Testament and relating it to the New Testament that we're reading here. It's like, really, is that what it says? So that's really helpful.
It helps. I don't know about you, but I grew up with this stuff on the dining room table. It was Wednesdays, Fridays, and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
As
you know, my father was also a minister, so yeah, we grew up around.
So when I say, the parable of the fig tree, you know exactly what I mean.
Exactly.
Right? Healing the woman on the Sabbath. Oh, they got so mad at Jesus for healing on the Sabbath.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. Okay.
All right. So let's look at this. In this first paragraph, there's a couple of things going on here that I appreciate. First, I really just feel to. We don't normally open with a prayer, but I just feel to give this teaching time to Holy Spirit. This time is Holy Spirit's, and just let me be an open conduit for whatever Holy Spirit would have Jacquelyn says. So here we go. So again, this first paragraph says, when you look at the world, remember that you're looking through the filter of your own mind. And this we've heard many times. It's a reflection of my mind. This next sentence seems to be something that they talked about the other program that I missed last week that I understand Connie did a great job on, although I still haven't had an opportunity to hear the program. This is the line. It says, when you find yourself reacting to the world you see, remember that you're only reacting to the thoughts in your mind. And so, Connie, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you if you have anything you want to say in that regard after teaching basically that line. I think you were teaching that line at the last early teachings. Yes.
Well, it's a lesson that's been taught. Actually, it's been taught earlier in that there's two thought systems. There's the thought system of the Holy Spirit, and there's the thought system of the ego, and so you're always in one system or the other, so who are you really having? Who are you really having a relationship with? So are you having a relationship with the Holy Spirit, or are you having a relationship with the ego? And whether that's whether I'm seem to be having a relationship with my brother or not, I'm not. I'm only having a relationship with the Holy Spirit or the ego.
Lovely. Thank you. That's a very nice synopsis. Thank you for sharing it. Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. And that's what's being said here. Just as she said, when you find yourself reacting to the world you see, remember that you're only reacting to your thoughts, to the thoughts in your mind. And by remembering that, this will provide you the opportunity to see the thoughts that you think. So, Shauna taught the other lesson that this refers to for us last Sunday when she did clarifying the teachings. Shauna, do you have anything that you want to say about that? Again, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. It's just such a blessing, though, to be able to kind of turn that whole thing around and watch the thoughts and be able to see the belief, and then to be able to see how you see through that filter of beliefs and how we can actually see that so we can turn it around. I just think that's such a huge blessing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and they were looking in deepening and clarifying the teachings, looking at what the body does as a means of seeing where believing attention has been placed. So, I think it's interesting now. This third paragraph says, and it's cute as well, you are the proud owner. You are the proud owner of the judgments you have made. And it's interesting because a lot of what I have been teaching for quite some time, once I realized the efficacy of this knowledge, is distancing yourself from the thoughts in your mind, recognizing that you don't sit around and go, oh, okay, there's a thought, and you made one up, oh, and made another one up, and that's just not how it seems to work. It seems to work. These thoughts come in your mind, but what you do get to do is choose among them. You know, Regina has compared it in the past to like shopping at TJ Maxx, where they have all different kinds of tops, and you get to, you know, blouses, and you get to go through blouse after blouse, and it's okay. You don't have to pick the ones you don't want, but when you find one you want, you pick it off the rack, right, and take it with you. And that the thoughts that come into your mind work in much the same way. But this is really emphasizing, and it's just coming from a little bit of a different angle. It's like you're the proud owner of those judgments, but when you recognize that you own them because you claim them, right? So you're the proud owner of the judgments that you have claimed. How's that working out for you? Yeah. So, yeah. Then you really do get to decide whether or not you want to claim the judgments, even though they show up in your mind. Do you want to claim them as your own? Is the real question. Then this, like fifth paragraph down, I think it says, remember that judgment is like a knife that looks at the Son of God and separates him. And this goes back to what Connie was talking about. This means that as long as you hold on to your judgment as something that has value, you are blind to the beauty and value of the sight of the Son of God. So it's absolutely, sorry, I've got these notices popping up for no reason. It's absolutely one column or the other, right? You cannot see heaven. You cannot see the Son of God. You cannot see unity if you're starting from the wrong vantage point. If you're starting from a sense of separation, from a sense of more than, less than, better than, less than, right? If you're coming into this from a judgment standpoint, you cannot see through the eyes of wholeness. You cannot see with the eyes of God. And it's like, when I read this earlier, I said that the Son of God is greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's not like, oneness is all of us really close together. No. It's something beyond beyond the ken of the thinking mind, beyond the ability of the thinking mind to create. It's something so miraculous that it can't be seen from the vantage point of judgment. And to the extent that you use judgment as your guide in how to be in the world, you will miss it entirely. You won't even know it's there. Like Glen talks about, hello, hopeless and closed learning situation.
Right.
That's what the ego, I mean, it's hopeless and closed, and you cannot, there are no cracks for the light to get in, right? And until you begin to go, hey, maybe this judgment thing isn't what it's been cracked up to be. Maybe I don't have it right? Maybe we do share interests.
Being on the same planet.
Yeah. Clearly being on the same planet. But it's like we still, we want to, we just tend to think of ourselves as standalone entities, I'm fully self-sufficient. Don't need you. Thank you. Don't need you in my space, right? That we're completely different things. And as long as you're looking at life, at yourself, at your brother, at the world through those eyes, you'll miss the miracle.
Yeah.
And the willingness to see differently is what opens you up to just to miraculous events, to events that seem no way related in the mind of man. Those couldn't possibly be related to complete inseparability in the mind of God. All of that sounds very vague. But you talked a while ago in your program, Glen, about, or maybe you talked about it a moment ago, about the flow.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a different way of being. It's different in kind than being as separate entities who happen to be sharing a place, a world together. So again, column A, column B, never the two shall meet. You don't even know what you're missing when you're stuck in the ego column. You can't fathom it.
And they don't talk to each other.
They don't talk to each other.
I know. Yeah.
So, so this paragraph follows up that says, if you can find but a bit of willingness to see the Son of God, and so not to judge, that's enough. What does this mean, to see the Son of God? It means to see the singleness, singleness of purpose, the fact that although we appear separate, we're not separate. It's to see beyond the thinking mind, to see beyond separate self-interest. So if you can find but a bit of willingness to see the Son of God, the wholeness of everything, and so not to judge, right? Because you can't see wholeness and judge at the same time, that's enough. And if each time you notice your judgments, you give your willingness in whatever measure, and just see them. Awareness alone is curative, right? So, and if each time you notice your judgments, you give your willingness in whatever measure it may seem to be, that is enough. Again, that's all we're being asked to do. We're not being asked to be control freaks and know-it-alls, one day, and the next day just be peace pilgrim or Jesus, right? That's not what we're being asked to do. What we're being asked to do is to give our willingness. When we go, up, there's a judgment. Up, there's a judgment. Up, I take that one back, because that's not the world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world of separate bodies and separate interests and that's not what I want. I want to give my willingness to see as God sees, to see as the Son of God, or to see the Son of God. If you can find but a bit of willingness to see the Son of God, and so not to judge, that's enough. And if each time you notice your judgments, you give your willingness in whatever measure it may seem to be, that is enough. Again. And I think this is so sweet, and it's so lovely, and so warm. It's like fertilizer. Isn't that great? In case you're not getting this, it's like fertilizer. Yes.
What is fertilizer? Fertilizer is dead things. So fertilizer is something that is like dead and composed, and it's like going. It's compost and things like that. It's dead. It's already.
I like that. Now that's not quite the way I like it, but it's not quite the way I took it. What I think the fertilizer, but that's good. But I think the fertilizer analogy for me brings up again, I know I'm comparing apples to oranges, but it's like that snowball analogy, right? It's like,
Oh yeah.
or the yeast that works its way through the whole ball of dough, right? It's exponentially growth giving, right? So just give me a little bit of willingness, and buddy, you're gonna have blooms beyond your imagination. Let's see. So, and then it talks again about the thinking mind being the confused mind. You think you're following all the rules. You think you're doing, these are the rules you learned. You think you're applying them well. You're doing the best that you can. And yet everything turns to crap. I mean, ultimately it does. If you're relying on ego, it does. And it says, so your confusion comes from the way you've been thinking up until now. It's your thoughts that make you suffer. It's your thoughts that make you suffer. If we said that 24/7 here on Awakening Together, we would be doing the world a service. It's your thoughts that make you suffer. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's why we're asked to let go of the thinking mind, the reliance on the thinking mind. We're asked to let go our reliance on the thinking mind. It's your thoughts that have made you suffer. And so if you would choose freedom, you must also choose freedom from your thoughts. So the fact that it shows up doesn't mean you have to claim it, right? The fact that judgment shows up doesn't mean you have to claim it. The fact that judgment shows up and you go, yeah, and it doesn't mean you're stuck with it. Right? You can choose freedom from your thoughts. At whatever time it occurs to you that freedom is a possibility, and then you choose. That's it. That's the whole process. You give your willingness to be free from those thoughts. So great. That's good news. So okay, great. How do I get me some of that peace and joy of God? Right? Well, it's not what you think it is. It's not because you're going to work really hard. You're going to make it happen. You're going to, it's just that's not how it works. One comes to know the peace and joy of God by listening to me as a small child who's eager to learn listens to a parent. And then just as that child does by trying everything the parent asks you to try. And this next part is just, it's miraculous. It's like, you are not becoming a better person. That's not what this is about. Yeah. Right? You're not gonna, get it. Oh, I finally figured out how to do it. No, you're gonna give your willingness. You're gonna give your willingness. You're gonna give your willingness. You're gonna give your willingness, and bam, right? By some miracle, it comes through grace. It's not the doer. You are not the doer. You are not the self-improver who's finally going to become a worthy self.
I'm going to earn enlightenment.
Right. You cannot earn enlightenment. That's it exactly. That's it exactly. It will come through grace, right? Progress comes from grace. Just suddenly it's there. And, Regina has defined grace before as the result of your believing attention. So look at that. So how are we exercising our choice? Are we choosing to let go of those judgment thoughts that show up in the mind when we see them? Mm-hmm. Right? Are we choosing to give our willingness at every opportunity we have to give our willingness? Or are we still grabbing onto those judgments and going, well, I just want this one, just for a little bit longer, because she really was a bitch when she said that. Mm-hmm. or whatever, right? No. Are we giving our willingness at every turn? As we give our willingness at every turn, it shows the result is the grace of the truth of ourselves, showing through. So again, this is how it is with you. Listen and practice as an expression of your willingness, but do not expect results from your listening and your practice. That's not where results come from. Results come from expressing your willingness. Just be willing. I mean, oh my God, how easy is this? You don't have to master any practice, right? You don't have to master a practice. You do not have to become a good public speaker, right? You don't. All you ever have to do is give your willingness. And sometimes that's a damn hard thing to do.
That's all. That's all I can do. That's all I can do.
Sometimes it is really hard to do, you know, if so-and-so's just hurt your feelings. Oh, okay, give my willingness.
I know.
I mean, sometimes it is hard to do. And yet that's what we're called on to do again and again and again, to whatever measure it may seem to be. That's enough. Remember a few weeks ago in one of these programs, we talked about, I'm willing to be willing to let go of that thought. And that paves the way, again, that snowball thing, it paves the way for genuine willingness. Yeah, and just remember, I mean, so it's either willingness or resistance, and she tells us that very clearly elsewhere in NTI. But those are your only two choices ever: willingness or resistance. Am I willing to see with the eyes of God, as opposed to am I only willing to see with self-interest? Column A, column B. Make me your purpose in all things. Your willingness is everything. Through your willingness, all it takes, see all things anew. That's it. Thanks for letting me preach. I got preachy there.
Oh, I love, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't turn the page. Yeah, I have one more thing on page 157. Exactly. What you said.
Say.
No, exactly what you. That's exactly what you just like you were like, oh yeah.
What she said.
What page 157? Yeah, this is quite. Your willingness is everything. You know, I say thinking, like, don't. That willingness, when she says that, to get to willingness, I often have to do this like let go thing, or like saying, okay, I don't know what anything is for. I can't know, because the thing that really has had an impact on me is one time in the course she goes, you can look back on your life and you can look back at your triumphs, maybe a triumph, and it was the worst thing that ever happened to you. Yeah. And you can look back at you can tell the story of the greatest tragedy of your life as the best thing that ever happened to you. Yeah. So I can't be in it and know how it's all gonna exactly look like and turn out and everything like that. But I do know, because I align my will with what is true, I do know what God's intent for my life is.
Happiness.
Perfect happiness. You know? And she goes, if you see like I do, everybody's beautiful. You don't see the beauty in your brother. You want to see like I do? You know how you see like I do? Everyone's beautiful. Everything's exactly how it's supposed to be.
That's right.
There's no wishing the form it was in a different condition, you know, and all of that. And that I can, the we stuff, you know, I'm always talking about relationships, and that's what a lot of this is for me as well. God's will that you, it's just to see my mind, to have the habit of my mind. It's like it's like know thyself. I know that what my habits are. I know what my triggers are. Or I could. But I have identity in my faults and foibles, so I'm not going to look at them. You know. But with healing for me has come a lot of energy, has come a lot of clarity through this healing, and looking at seeing things differently, believing what the Course said before I could actually, experience it or whatever like that. Not acting on my feelings and acting on what the Course says is true. It's changed, it's changed my life. I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't work. She gives you method in this method.
And Glenn, I'm often reminded of that part from the Rules for Decision in A Course in Miracles that says, what I do know is I don't like the way I feel now, so I hope I've been wrong. And that's very helpful for me. A lot of that, I mean, that's giving willingness, and that carries me through even when I cannot see how that other person could be right and I could be wrong, which is not the way it works, y'all, by the way. That's not how it works. But that's how it gets set up in the mind, right? It's like, how could I possibly be wrong here, right? Or how could, whatever, when there's a real attachment to wanting to maintain my perspective on this, because obviously it's right. I know I don't see how things could be different, but I know I don't want to feel like this. So
I say that a lot. I'm upset, so I know I'm wrong. And I can that does a lot of work in my own psyche. That phrase or that thing that does a lot of work. The other one that does I don't like how I feel. The other one that does a lot of good work for me is I don't know what anything is for.
Right.
Because that's this like realizing that's like brings the filter into relief. I don't know what anything is for, kind of like shows the matrix, kind of like shows me often the filter of my own mind, my own desire to have it a certain way. It's like, would it be okay if things didn't? Yes, often. Yes, of course. But I have a habit, of wanting things a certain way. So that's what I do. But there's a practicality of that as well. You get a cake by putting these specific ingredients together in this order. And that's how you get a cake, and that's how we get our lives. That's how we get our suffering, So I'd love to hear what other people have got. It's a nice big chapter. Hey, Cindy.
Starting to realize that there's only really one teaching with a lot of different levels in the whole book.
Yeah.
So thank you, because my heart feels very open relative to willingness. First, there's a prayer that blew up in me about 2 or 3 days ago that I'm living in, and I'd like to share it with you because I had never heard it before. And I got to trust it, because even the words are not Cindy words. But it just states, I invoke the promise of the prodigal son. I would be a slave in my father's home. I give up all thoughts that are not his. And so that's the willingness I'm living in right now. And every time I say it out loud, there are these tears in my eyes, because it speaks to me. I've been sitting in this willingness soup for a little bit now, and holding on to Cindy and sitting in the soup and wondering when my life was going to get better, and sitting in the soup and in the willingness, and wondering when I'm going to, and something just, and that's a longer story, but I'm done. Cindy's done. I don't know how to put it any other way, whatever. And even the Christian language, I didn't grow up in a Christian household, but like, I just start crying. I just say, Daddy, I'm ready to come home, and that's where my willingness is sitting. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me a safe place to get all teary again.
Yeah.
So there are two things based on this reading and based on where we are in gentle healing that I just want to call up. And the first is in Jude, and it's just Jude verses 3 and 4. Your mind is one mind, our mind is one mind. There are no minds that are separate and alone from other minds. This is why there is no suffering, because there are no minds that are alone. There is one mind, and this one mind is fully and completely yours. And it just reminds me with the other one that I was going to read, which is Revelations chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, or just 4. The world is an illusion, and so everything you experience as you let go of the world is illusion. Also, you are not to believe any of it. and key for me, just as I was sitting in Luke, and I can hear Regina teaching and clarifying the teachings about how Luke is for the beginner, and then Spirit. By the time we're here, we're not beginners anymore, and everyone in this room has already been through NTI more than once. So, none of these thoughts are ours, right? They're not Cindy's thoughts or Jacquelyn's thoughts or Glen's thoughts. So when we're doing this thought sorting thing that Luke is saying, hey, give them to me and I'll tell you whether or not you keep your thought or not. By the time we get to the end of this book, we're just being reminded that there is no Cindy to have a thought.
Mhm.
And so these thoughts can all be let go of, because nothing real, I can only give up what was never real. So I surrender them all, I guess, is, and the other thing along those same lines, and that prayer, I wasn't going to say the prayer out loud, is, I'm still living in Regina's first homily of 2022. And that is really very comforting to me, because she reminded us then that this body, mind, personality ain't me either. And it's holding a whole bunch of thoughts and beliefs and ideas and stories that I don't consciously buy anymore, but they're still creating a reaction to the world. They're still coming up. And I get to just continuously see them and not, and withdraw my believing attention. So I'm just really happy to be part of Awakening Together. And that's what I had to share.
Well, thanks for plugging the name of the show. Herein lies the peace of God with that share, because it's like nothing real, nothing unreal exists, nothing real can be threatened. Herein lies the peace of God, and that's what you just literally what you just said is beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's lovely. I find myself wanting to tell a story, and so I'll just say real quick. I don't know how quick. Anyway, the story wants to be told, so I'm going to tell it. So I got in a spat with somebody over something silly, and the next day I called him up and said, I want to apologize for being silly, for whatever, being tightly wound or something like that. And then a friend of mine said, was aware that that's the way that and then we had a lovely talk. Everything was fabulous. And then a friend of mine said, about the situation. They said, so does it bother you to cave so quickly? There's no such thing as caving. And said to the person, and they looked at me they're like, well, what do you call it? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. We all have the same interest. And it was just so interesting that, and I guess this is why the story's getting told, is because it's just a different approach to the world, that there are opposing interests, and to begin to see this differently, to have given the willingness to have the whole situation. Of course, even when I'm spatting, I know I know that there are no separate interests, right? And so I'm blessed to be able to see that quickly. So I don't know why the story wanted to be told, but there it's been told.
Well, go ahead.
There was one other thing that I noted that I didn't say, but where you were talking about it, reminded me, Regina gave just a brilliant response on Wednesday to the question, can't I have an opinion? I don't know if everybody heard it, but it was a very clear question. So isn't it okay when I have an opinion, I can share it as long as I'm not really attached to whether or not the other person believes it, right? That was the question. Regina was like, no. It was such a, she's like, No, all opinions are judgments. If you're in this space at some point, you gotta be willing, as long as you have an opinion that somebody else can disagree with, you're in the wrong mind. And so that
Yeah,
it was something about Wednesday's teaching that for me just lit fireworks. So.
Way to go.
well, and that reminds me of the Rumi poem, right? Somewhere out beyond right and wrong, there's a field. I'll meet you there. Yeah.
Right, because the paradigm of doing, it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. That's very difficult. That could be read a lot of different ways. It matters why you're doing it. What like I was saying before, am I at a goal? Am I trying to reach some kind of goal, a condition of a thing? Or am I expressing and sharing what is real? Am I participating in reality? Am I this present moment? Am I the example of the eternity? Am I living in that experience? A good deal of the time, yes, but not all the time. And so the story that I could quickly tell was I've mentioned it before. There's a particular person at work who has decided that for whatever reason, that I shouldn't be spoken to, So I'm ignored, and I can say hello and good morning, and this person doesn't say hello or anything like that. So I mean, what am I doing wrong? Why doesn't this person like, So that's all my, it's like my beliefs are being reflected, in the world. I still have some need for conflict and somebody to be wrong and someone to, to wrestle with over this. I'm still doing it in a little tiny way, so it's still happening. But we got just about a minute and a half. Anybody would like to share?
I think our outro takes a minute and a half, don't it?
Okay, let's do it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.
Instead of pain.
Thank you, everybody. We love you.
Thanks, everybody.